So the new forbidden slash limited list just dropped yesterday. So now I feel like it is appropriate to show some replays of Mermail Atlanteans versus the top decks. And for this replay, I have Tenpai. Now, if you don't know, on the recent forbidden slash limited list, they got Singen Summoning to 1, and they also got Prosperity to 1, which really hurts the consistency of the deck. But with the Rage of the Abyss, they have 2 new cards that are going to be pretty powerful in the deck. One being Molcharmy, the new Molcharmy, and then we're going to also have the Dominus Impulse, the new Dominus Trap card, which is really, really powerful. So let's just see how powerful the new Tenpai deck is versus Mermail Atlantean. So let's just get into the replay. I lose the die roll, but it doesn't matter against Tenpai. They're probably just going to make you go first. So my hand is Nephthybis, Ash Blossom, Deep Sea Minstrel, Impulse, and the Veiler, which are pretty good hand traps, I would say. And then I have, then they have Talents, Droll, Sengen Kaiman, Dominus Impulse, and Droplet. So pretty decent hand from both sides, I would say. So I'm going to start off with the Nephthybis. Nephthybis is going to use its effect to send the bodyguards and add Atlantean Dragoons, and then I'm going to trigger the effect of the bodyguards, but as you see, they have the Draw and Lockbird, so they're going to chain it to my effect of bodyguards, so I wouldn't be able to add with something like Dragoons, or, you know, I triggered Dragoons like 50 billion times in this deck, so it is appropriate to have Draw against this deck. So I'm gonna use the effect to summon out the Abyss Shrine. Now, here I did an illegal play. I used the effect of Abyss Shrine, which is, you can't do that. It can only use this effect while it's in the hand, but you can also trigger or tribute an Atlantean monster or Mermail monster from your hand or field. So it's not both of them being able to tribute from the hand or field. It's just the other monster has to be from your hand or field, but the Abyss Shrine has to be in your hand to use its effect. So that's just something to note. I will showcase later why that doesn't matter, but let's just assume this is all legal. So we're going to use the effect of the Abyss Shrine. Abyss Shrine is going to tribute both of those monsters in order to summon out the Coelacanth, which is a really good card I like to have in this deck. But we're going to use the effect of the Nephthybis, and that's going to summon back the bodyguards. And then we're going to use the effect of Coelacanth. Coelacanth is going to discard the Minstrel, and now they're going to use the Dominus Impulse to negate the Coelacanth, because then I would summon like Double Toad and have like a bunch of follow-up and Abyss Gaios and all that other crazy stuff. They pretty much would lose the game. So now I'm going to use the effect of bodyguards, sending off the Veiler, and then I'm going to overlay into the Abyss Gaios, which I would end on a Veiler, pretty much, Impulse, Dragoons, and Ash Blossom. So now I'm going to pass to their turn. They draw into Hydra, which is a good draw. They need an engine there to kind of push to my board. So they're going to normal summon Hydra. I'm going to use the effect of the Abyss Gaios, and that's going to negate the effect of the Hydra. And now I'm going to use the effect of the Bodyguards. Bodyguard is going to use this effect to summon out the Abyss Pike. And now I'm going to use the effect of the Abyss Pike, sending off the Dragoons, and that's going to add the Abyss Shrine here. And then we're going to use the effect of Dragoons to add a copy of Heavy Inventory from our deck to our hand. And now I believe they're going to go into the battle phase, or no, they're going to use talents here. So they're going to use talents to rip one of my hand traps out of my hand, which is pretty good. So they're going to rip Ash Blossom here, but as you're going to see in their hand, I'm going to have the Dominus Impulse just to negate the Sengen Kaiman. So they're going to go into the battle phase, and then I'm going to negate the Sengen Kaiman they use in the battle phase here, which is pretty good. So now they have no like engine here. They can only like attack over my Abyss Pipe, which is fine here. I'm going to take 100 damage, and then they're going to set droplets and pass their turn. And then in the end phase, I'm going to use the effect of Abyss Shrine in the graveyard, and I'm going to send the heavy inventory to the graveyard, and then I'm going to draw into a Harpooner, and then I'm going to use the effect of heavy inventory to pop the Hydra, and now I draw Mermail, Abyss, Teus for my turn. Now, before I even get into this turn, I want to showcase why this last turn did not matter, or the turn where I illegally used the Abyss Shrine on my first turn. So I'm going to start off normally how I did. I'm going to use the effect of Neptibus to send the bodyguards and add the Dragoons, and now I'm going to use the effect of the bodyguards to summon out the Abyss Shrine, and then I'm going to use the effect, or I'm going to use these two to go into Abyss Lacia, and I'm going to pass my turn. Now basically this is the same thing. I'm ending on, instead of Abyss Giles, I'm ending on Valor, and instead of them using the Dominus Impulse, they're going to have the Dominus Impulse in their hand. So instead I'm going to use the Valor on their Pydra. I'm going to get my Ash Blossom ripped from my hand, and then I'm going to Dominus Impulse the Singen Kaiman, and here they would have the Pydra on the field. If they choose to attack over the Alacia, I'm going to get just way more pluses than imaginable. So they probably won't attack over the Alacia because I'm going to be able to use the effect to send a water monster for a cost, which I'm probably going to send like a Neptibus, and then I'm going to summon back the Neptibus from the graveyard, and then I'm going to use the effect of the Neptibus that I sent to the graveyard off of the Abyss Alacia, and I'm going to summon back the bodyguards. So I'd have 2 bodies instead of 1, and I also have follow-up for the next turn. So that doesn't matter. And then my ending hand would be, I would use the effect of Abyss Rhine during their end phase when they set the droplets and they have the Dominus Impulse in their hand. I'm going to use the effect of Abyss Shrine to discard this and then draw a card, and the draw would be the Harpooner because that's what I drew off of the Abyss Shrine in the replay. And then I would use the effect of the Dragoons to add Neptibus here, and then my draw for turn would be the Teus. So I'd basically have 4 cards in hand plus Alacia to play around droplets in the Dominus Impulse. So this hand most likely plays through like that. So let's just get into the replay though. So it looks pretty grim for my opponent. I have Harpooner, Teus, and Abyss Shrine in my hand, so I'm just going to play it out. I'm going to use the effect of Teus. I'm assuming this is like an imperm. I don't know it's droplets, so I'm just going to play it out as I assume it is, which is an imperm. I'm going to add the copy of bodyguards to my hand, and then I'm going to use the effect of Abyss Shrine to tribute to add to my hand Ice Jade Ran Adrin, and then I'm going to use the effect of the bodyguards, and then I'm going to summon out the Neptibus. So here I'm just baiting out I'm baiting out an imperm here because they'd probably try to imperm Neptibus here, but who knows. So now I'm using the effect of Neptibus to send Dragoons to add Dragoons to my hand, and now I'm going to use the effect of Dragoons, and I'm going to add, I believe, Neptibus to my hand. Yeah, I'm going to add Neptibus to my hand, and now I'm going to overlay into the new Poseidra card, which is Poseidra Abyss, the Atlantean Dragon Deity, which is pretty good. So now I'm going to use the effect to get rid of the back row, because at this point I'm like, maybe it's not imperm. So if they try to imperm this, it's fine. I just kill them anyways, but they're probably not. I'm going to send the Moon Glacier because at this point I don't really need Moon Glacier, and there's nothing else to trigger that I can send. I could send probably a Dragoons if I really wanted to, but I don't have any more. I don't want to send a Neptibus because I already have a Neptibus in my hand that I can trigger very easily. So it's probably just the best card to send here. And now I get rid of the droplets that they set, and then at this point it's pretty much game. I go into the Coral Anemone, I use the effect of Coral Anemone, I go into Harpooner, and then I use the effect of the Ran Adrin, I discard the Neptibus, and the Neptibus is going to use this effect to summon out Dragoons. And here I overlay into Bahamut Shark, and I go into Totally Awesome, and then I use the effect of the Dragoons, and that is going to add a Sea Serpent from my deck to hand, and he just scoops the game. So now we're going to game 2 here. Game 2, he opts to make me go first, and I open up Harpooner, Neptibus, Called by the Grave, Bodyguards, and Sting. And they open up Droplets, Genroku, Rivalry, Lightning Storm, and Droll and Lockbird, which is really good. But as you're going to see in my hand, I have Called by the Grave, this stuff that Droll, so seems pretty grim for them. So I'm going to use the effect of Neptibus. Neptibus is going to use this effect to send bodyguards to add dragoons, and then I'm going to use the effect of bodyguards, and they're going to chain their copy of Droll and Lockbird, which I'm going to respond with Called by the Grave, which is going to stop that from affecting me. And then I'm going to use the effect of Abyss Pike to send the dragoons to add the Abyss Rhine, and then I'm going to use the effect of the dragoons, and I'm going to add the heavy infantry here. And now this is just standard combo. I'm going to use the effect of Abyss Rhine. Abyss Rhine is going to add Teus, and then I'm going to use the effect of the Net Abyss that I attributed, and that is going to summon out the dragoons. And now I'm going to overlay both the Abyss Pike and the dragoons, and that's going to go into the Bahamut Shark. And now we're going to use the effect of Bahamut Shark to summon out the Totally Awesome. Don't forget to detach the dragoons here, which is going to trigger off of the Bahamut Shark detaching. And now we're going to add the Moon Glacier, and now as you can see we have 4 waters in the graveyard. Easy way to get another water in the graveyard is to use the effect of Teus to discard the Harpooner that we have in our hand. And now we're going to use the effect of the Abyss Teus, and we're going to add Abyss Shrine for a follow-up turn. And now we're going to use the effect of Moon Glacier, special summon itself, and discard 2 cards from my opponent's hand. So I'm going to randomly choose 2 cards out of their hand to rip. Any card is like really good here. Probably just get rid of their engine is probably the best way, which I get rid of the Rivalry of the Warlords and the Genroku here. So now they have no didn't have no engine to pretty much play against my board. And so now I'm going to use both the Teus and the Bahamut Shark to go into Coral Anemone, and now I'm going to use the effect to summon back the bodyguards, and then I'm going to use bodyguards to discard the bodyguards that I have in my hand to make them both level 7, and then I'm going to go into Abyss Gaios, and I'm going to pass my turn here. So I'm ending on Gaios, Toad, and then I have a pop of this, and I get to draw a card, so I could probably draw into a hand trap as well. But let's see it draw. So he draws into a Nibiru, which is not going to be enough to cut it. So now they're going to droplets, and then they're going to Lightning Storm, because this is the only play they have. But as you see in my hand, I have the Abyss Sting, that's follow-up. I have the Abyss Shrine, which is follow-up. I have the Toad that's going to trigger here, which is follow-up against any of these cards that I want. And then, yeah, I just basically win the game. I still have my top deck as well, so I pretty much end on like 5 cards in my hand to like basically kill them, and they have 0 cards in their hand. So Mermail is looking like an insane deck against Tenpai. It feels like if they don't have hand traps specifically against this deck, it could be pretty hard, because if they play stuff like board breakers, then I have ways to not only get rid of it with stuff like Moon Glacier, which is like really good, which is right here, and then I also have access to stuff like Totally Awesome. And if I have a read that they're on stuff like whatchamacallit, board breakers, I could play stuff like the Equip spell, which is the spell negator, which could get through stuff like droplets and stuff like that. I can also go really greedy and play around, not play around stuff like Nib, and go into the Silicant, and then Silicant gets me to more Toads. So now they have to deal with 2 negates instead of that, and as well as like Abyss Gaios. They probably have to deal with a heavy infantry as well, and then they're gonna have to deal with any hand traps that I draw. I didn't have any hand traps this hand, but as you see in my previous hand, I had like 3 hand traps in my hand. So imagine trying to play through like 3 to 4 interruptions plus 2 discards from your opponent's hand, and then trying to, or from their hand, and then trying to deal with like 2 to 3 hand traps in there. Like, you can't really do that, right? So I feel like this matchup is pretty good for Mermail. I think the only problem, which is like the pretty strong cards in the Tenpai deck, which is the Molcharmy card. Molcharmy is going to be pretty insane against his deck. Dimensional Shifter, which is going to be pretty insane against any graveyard deck. And then maybe Droll and Lockbird. I think Droll and Lockbird is probably pretty good if I don't draw like a lot of hand traps like I did in that last duel. So yeah, just some things I can note off here. I think at the end of this duel I do note off, because I'm gonna win this duel. Obviously they're gonna scoop their hand, but as I'm going to be showing in this replay, I do have some tech cards that I am playing in this deck. They're showing off what they have for their deck, which they have Nibiru, which is pretty good if they have cards like Valor to stop stuff like Totally Awesome first. but it does give me follow up with Toad. So they can also Valor the Bahamut Shark, which I won't have access to Toad, and then they can nib me, which is pretty good against this deck. I think that's the correct way to interrupt this deck. DD Crow is pretty good to stop stuff like Dragoons or any of the graveyard effects in my deck, which is pretty good. So I think this is pretty solid. Not sure if I would play like these Going Second cards again. I feel like Going Second cards like Lightning Storm and Droplets are pretty bad against Mermail, unless you have like a bunch and you just somehow get lucky. So I just don't think Board Breakers are pretty good. I think you have to solely play hand traps against this deck. But as you see, I have in my deck to counter Tenpai, because I feel like Tenpai is pretty good against the deck if you have, again, the Mulch Armies and the Shifter, which I am playing Cross-Egg Designator for stuff like Cross Out, or for Drone Lockbird. I have Shifter, and I'm also playing the Mulch Army card in the main deck as well, which I can cross out with just to stop that against Tenpai, which is pretty good. And even if you draw stuff like Shifter or draw stuff like Draw Lockbird, again, you can use Draw as a hand trap. But if you draw a Dimension Shifter, obviously you don't want to use that in your Mermail deck. But you can use the effect of Bodyguards, because as you see in a lot of the replays or a lot of the combos of Mermail, you use the effect of Bodyguards to discard a random card from your hand. So you can just discard the Shifter if you hard draw it, and then that can just be a way to get rid of it in your hand if you do end up unfortunately drawing that card. So I feel like the Tenpai matchup is definitely good, especially if you respect it with cards like D-Barrier, again with Cross Out to get rid of stuff like Shifter, Draw and Lockbird, and the new Mulch Army card that could be pretty devastating against your deck. So that is it, guys. Let me know what you guys think of Mermail against Tenpai, and let me know what you want to see next. Maybe you want to see Fire King Snake Eye against the Mermail deck. Maybe you want to see Yugioh versus the Mermail deck, or just any other deck like Runic Stun, or any of these other viable tier 2 decks that are really strong in the format. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I am out. Peace.